What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the crazy bedhead weird stuff in his nose podcast, also known as the Solemn Strength podcast. Thank you for coming back. Let's jump right in. So the first order of business, I want to talk about a shoe that I have been reviewing for the last few months, and that is the DaVinci Barefoot Lapworth boot here. The very good people at DaVinci Barefoot sent me this boot to review a few months ago, and I've given some little reviews on Instagram, but I thought today I could actually give an official kind of long form review. So as you can see, this is a very good looking boot. It just kind of looks like a normal, cool, fashionable boot, but it adheres to the minimalist footwear, barefoot style practices that I think all shoes should adhere to. So it's really wide, as you can see. It's very flexible. It's got a thin sole. The entire thing is made of leather, and these are actually handmade in Los Angeles. So I'm really thankful to the people at DaVinci for sending me the boot. It's great. There's really not much I dislike about it. I do sometimes have a difficult time getting my foot into the boot. It has kind of like a narrow entry, if that's the right term. But I am not someone who wears boots very frequently. Usually I'm just in like a sneaker or something working at the gym. So that's probably the explanation. I assume most boots are just harder to get on in general than a sneaker. So that's like the one thing that's not perfect with the boot here, but everything else is pretty good. As you can see, there's ample room for the toes to splay around. It's zero drop, so there's no elevation in the heel. It's really flexible. I've worn these boots for like hours at a time, and I've had no pain or discomfort whatsoever. So in my opinion, it's a great boot. It's a really cool company. I would check them out. I believe they're at DaVinci Footwear. They were formerly at DaVinci Barefoot. But they have a bunch of different styles, different colors for men, women, and I think they intend on doing a lot more in the future. So check them out. They seem to be growing kind of rapidly. Thank you again to the people at DaVinci for sending me the awesome boot. It's something that is going to stay in my wardrobe or whatever, at least when I'm doing casual, non-exercise stuff. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, you may notice that my nasal dilator is a different color today. That is because I am now using the Turbine there, which is yellow. Before, I think last week I mentioned I had been using the Mute, which is a very similar product, but it's kind of clear. So it's a little bit more discreet, but I actually find that most people just kind of assume I'm wearing, like you could see it. So most people just assume I have a nasal, like a septum piercing. And so this is bright yellow. So I think now people just assume even more that it's a piercing, which means I don't have to answer as many questions. When people are curious, they're like, what's in your nose? And I tell them about it. It feels very similar. This one is, I think, geared more towards endurance athletes like cyclists, runners, whatever else you're doing to engage in endurance training. But as per usual, it's part of my like my health routine. It allows me to maintain nasal breathing most of the day. It's something that allows me to run with my mouth closed, just nasal breathing. So I would encourage you to check it out if you're having trouble sleeping, trouble nasal breathing. If you feel like you are a mouth breather just by default, you tend to default to mouth breathing, then I would look into a nasal dilator or anything really that could enhance just breathing through your nose. Because like I said before, it's been a game changer for me. It's allowed me to go from running just a few miles to a half marathon. Very helpful for me, especially as someone with some nasal dysfunction. Third thing on the agenda I want to talk about is not something that I believe I've mentioned in the past, but it is something that's a part of my health routine, and that is meditation. So I started meditating back in 2016 when I was in graduate school, because I felt like I had some difficulty concentrating and a little bit of anxiety. And I didn't think I would be someone who would be able to sit quietly in silence and just focus on my breathing. And I did have trouble with that. So I started using an app that you can get in the App Store called Insight Timer. And it's a free app. And within the app, there are a bunch of different recordings and meditations and instructors, excuse me, already on the app. So I have been using an instructor whose name is Andrew Johnson. He is a Scottish meditation instructor, and he has some very short, very nice introductory meditations already on the app. So if you are someone who's been trying to get into meditating, or you think you have difficulty focusing or concentrating, or you have anxiety, I think meditation is a great practice. I was meditating for about 3 months in a row, and I never experienced more mental clarity, better focus than I had experienced when I was meditating consistently. And I've kind of gotten away from that. I've been inconsistent because of a different sleep and wake schedule than I had from grad school. But in the month of November, with the exception of yesterday, because today is the 2nd, I'm going to meditate every day for at least 5 minutes. And if anyone wants to join in on that, you can. I don't have like a cool, sexy title for that. I'm just going to meditate every day because it's good for my brain. And if you want to try to get into it, check out the Insight Timer app. You can actually select the time frame that you want to meditate. I think the minimum effective dose is 5 minutes. I don't think you need to do 10, 15, 30 minutes. I think you can do 5 minutes. And as long as you're consistently doing it every day, there can be some really profound benefits from that. So give it a shot. Shoot me a DM if you have any more questions. If you want to follow Andrew Johnson, you can find him on the app or on social media at @WithAndrewJohnson, one word, all lowercase. And the last thing I want to talk about is kind of a weird story time situation for myself. So I was born exclusively left-handed. So I'm a lefty. I was writing lefty. I was using utensils lefty. I played soccer. I was kicking with my left foot. So I guess I was right brain dominant. And then in first grade, my teacher forced me to write with my right hand because she thought I was going to have difficulties in life as a lefty. So since first grade, I have mostly been writing with my right hand, but I always felt like there were some neurological ramifications of that. Difficulty focusing, maybe some ADD, just a tough time like sitting, and my handwriting was always pretty bad. I don't know that that's going to improve, but I have now switched back to being left-handed with everything. Eating, writing, those are pretty much the only things I ever did with my right hand. And I feel pretty good. I feel like I have more of an ability to focus, more of an ability to articulate what I'm trying to say more efficiently, perhaps. So that's been a pretty interesting switch. My handwriting is still pretty bad, but some research suggests that those who don't use their dominant hand, or they're forced to use either their non-dominant hand or both hands, even ambidextrous people, have a tougher time focusing. And I just think in general, it's wrong to ignore your true nature. And literally, I remember being young and using my left hand all the time and then having this switch. So I always just kind of felt like I was strangely writing with my right hand. So that's the most recent experiment I'm doing, but it feels really good. I will now just be using my left hand. If anyone else has some weird hand or foot or whatever stories, I'd love to hear them. But it's been making a little bit of a difference so far. And so that is something I'm going to continue doing. So if you have questions, shoot me a message. And I think that's pretty much it for today. Thank you for those of you who are watching or listening to the show. Please leave a review in some way or another at some point. I really want to start growing and expanding what I'm doing, maybe doing a longer podcast at some point, maybe doing longer videos, but I would like to get feedback. So if you totally hate the show and you hate the sound of my voice and you think this could be done way better, let me know. If you think it's good, but you have questions or you'd like to see some change or something, or you want me to cover a topic that I haven't, let me know that as well. I hope everyone's having a great week. Hope everyone's having a great weekend. This has been really fun keeping up with the podcast and YouTube, so I'm going to keep it rolling, at least one episode per week. Thank you to everyone for your support so far, and I'll talk to you guys soon.